And the more they see themselves in me, the more attention I get from them. Yeah, so when I tell my stories, I'm not just telling my story, I am telling their story as well. The real turning point was thanks to a former business partner of mine, and I'm forever grateful for that one 3-hour class that I sat in by Colin Go, right? And it's just about understanding the basics of Facebook algorithms, and now it's like so basic already, right? But to me back then, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a science behind Facebook. So I just told myself, okay, I know a little bit of the Facebook DNA. Let me just try to take this final stone in my hand and just throw and see what happens. So I started to post regularly. And suddenly, out of the blue, from no one gives a shit about my content, no one gives a shit about who I am, suddenly people start to care, right? You write business content, you get 80, 100, 150 engagements. And in a month, I just did it for 1 month. And I realized after a month, right, I had amassed a followership really fast. And I was surprised because you still doubt yourself, right? I was still not a successful person, but people's perception of me was not that. It was only my perception of myself, right? So after a month, I decided to run a paid workshop, and it sold out. Yeah, and then that's when I realized, crap, what's happening here? What's happening here? It's not normal. I'm supposed to be the guy that people look down upon, that's always failing, that no one comes to me for help, right? I want to help, but people don't want. So this was a very puzzling moment in my life, right? I never thrived in any area that had to do with work, right? And after that first month, I was surprised, and suddenly 12 speaking and training engagements came in. That's all of my ex-clients I converted into your big yellow contracts of like mid to higher 5 figures per year, right? Suddenly they were willing to pay me that, right? And that was a that was an eye opener, because it's not so much about being able to impact people, but when you realize your own value, that's when you shine even more. Yeah, and during that time, it was a healing process where I had to unlearn the 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 lies that you tell yourself, that you are not good enough, that that uh, that you deserve to be the demoted sergeant, you deserve to be the worst performing colleague who's always bullied, you deserve to be the guy who only earns 1K across the first 2 years of your business. Yeah, right. And I unlearned those lies over the next 6 months, that's when business started to really thrive. And I saw people give me the respect that I was trying to understand myself. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
So those were the key turning points. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That is that's so good, because I think one of the biggest thing I caught from that story is that your 1 year of growth, or 2 years, the last 2 years of growth, is a result of you failing for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? It's a result of you, failing and, not meeting up to standard, being the last for 10 years, and trying and until you actually hit your success. And I think that is so profound, because like in the world we're living in today, especially social media, right? Talking about social media, right? People tend to see success as something that is fast, that you get it fast, that is something that's fast paced, you can get it in a year or two, right? But people don't understand, they don't see the hardship that we have went through for the last 10 years, for the last 1 decade, even two decades before you actually achieve that breakthrough. Many people need to hear this, that if they're not achieving success in their first year, in their second year, it's totally normal. It's completely normal. Like when you were sharing about how you were doing image consultant, and then you went to branding, right? Basically, you found your market fit, right? In marketing terms, it's like you found your market fit, right? You were selling something that you're very good at convincing people, but it's not exactly something that people will just go, okay, I'm gonna pay money for it, right? But when you turn it into from image to brand, and I feel that it's also your change of target market, your change of your audience, right? People will actually see the value in branding rather than just image, because they see that branding can bring them more sales. Maybe not necessarily image. I don't know, right? But it sounds like that, right? You were just trying, and then eventually you found your feet. And I think it's actually very similar for me. Like I every year, ever since my previous career downfall, I was in debt, $500,000 debt. That's a famous story that I always been telling. And I remember one of the hardest thing was that every year I have to psych myself up. Like New Year resolution.
Yes.
And then you'll be like, this year is going to be different, right? This year is going to be a breakthrough year. And it never comes. And then the following year, this year is going to be a breakthrough year. It never comes. And then the following year, this is going to be a breakthrough year. It never comes. And this went on for like 5 years. And to be very frank, like I was very demoralized to a certain point,
Mm.
right? And that's I think that's how you felt, right? I think that I could relate to that. And the success will eventually come if you just keep going. And it's not something that usually you can plan for.
No, never ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I was asked this question when I was speaking to a primary school, right? And one of the students in the entrepreneurial session for P6s, I was quite impressed that they have these sessions. It's great. One of the kids asked me, Mr. Caleb, how important are grades when you in school today and stuff like that? And when someone asks this question, you can kind of see the real question that she's not asking, which is she's fearing that she will not score very well, right? And that will affect her future. And this is my answer to her. To be a successful entrepreneur, it's not about learning how to thrive, but it's about the ability to survive first when things do not go well.
Yeah.
If you can survive that, you are ready to thrive after that, right? Because people who just has a little bit of suffering and they fall flat and they don't want to do anymore, they will never last long enough to see any success. Right? And success is what they can use to impact the world greater, right? So we want to realize that it is the ability to survive, that grit, when darts are just fire, darts are being thrown at us at night, in the day, up, down, the right, center. We can survive that. We can thrive in any environment already.
Yeah. So survive until you thrive. I like that.
Right.
I like that.
There's a cheat code. There's a certain flow. You write that, you'll get clicks on. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Just put a sexy lady or whatever, right? You get clicks. So getting the clicks is easy, but connecting, right? Connecting, like what you said. So maybe you can elaborate more about what do you mean by connecting with your audience?
We're connecting. I want to firstly be very clear. We cannot connect everybody. It is impossible. It is impossible, right? The idea is that branding is to focus on who are going to be your best long-term clients, not going to be your quick machine gun and get all kinds of leads coming to you. So my strategy is very clear. I focus on mid and long-term relationships because those are the clients who love you so much, they will either keep coming back to you or they'll keep referring you to people, right? So for me, that's what connection is. I attract a very specific group of audience. Most of my clients, right, or my biggest fans, they usually are quite English speaking, right? They speak English very fluently. They look like middle class people or upper middle class, or they come from upper middle class background, right? These are the people who naturally connect with me because I tend to give off that feel naturally as well without even trying, right? So these are most of my target audience, right? If you ask that auntie on the street, right, she won't really connect with me because I'm so different from her demographic. So connecting is about knowing who is your target audience. So three things, right? Who are you, who you want, and who wants you. The Venn diagram, okay? So who are you, who you want, and who wants you. Right? Once you're very clear on this, you'll be naturally attracting your best target audience over and over again. So what are some things I did to attract people who naturally want me or make them realize that they want me? I share a lot of my stories. I share a lot about my past to give them emotional anchors to me. Connection is all about having emotional anchors. And the more I reveal about myself, my past, and my victories, I'm giving them more anchors to hang on to. And the more they see themselves in me, the more attention I get from them. Yeah, so when I tell my stories, I'm not just telling my story, I am telling their story as well. Where I've overcome it, and therefore they realize that there is hope. Yeah, that's my goal, to be inspiring, is to give people hope. Yeah, and by giving hope, they feel more connected because, wow, Caleb in the past is like what I am right now, right? And that makes me the person to guide them through in the future. Right? So this was, in a nutshell, very simply put, what we do to connect. We tell a lot of stories, and this is something you do all the time, right? And this is what helping your clients do, in fact, storytelling through video, right? And that's the power of being very real, right? Being very real and having nothing to hide. It's very counterintuitive, right? But the more things you share about your past, the more it attracts. It's very intuitive. But the power is that, man, the people who follow you, they are the people who naturally want to celebrate you at all costs. Yeah. Right? And those people who don't like what you write, they will automatically filter themselves away. Yeah. So it just makes life so much easier when you focus on connecting.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest mistakes for most people is they try to attract everyone. Right? Because they think